Welcome to the conversation where we have conversations with amazing people about amazing topics. I'm Nina Turner, and I am so thrilled about this conversation with one of my dear friends, David Sirota, who's an award-winning journalist. But we were in the trenches, I think more importantly, besides his awards and his winning. No, he is a magnificent investigative journalist and has won several awards for that. And I'm so proud of the venture that he started, Daily Poster, of which I am a member. Join. If you are not a member, you must join. Independent media is so important. That's why TYT is important. Daily Poster is important. And we got a lot of independent journalists in this space doing the daggone thing. He's my friend, and we were in the trenches together for the Bernie 2020 campaign. David Sirota, how you doing, darling?
I'm good, it's great to see you.
It is great to see you too. I don't know, maybe we could share some stories that won't get anybody hurt before this.
We were in the trenches.
We were in the trenches together. It's been something, and some people may or may not know, but you've been on the journey with Senator Sanders for a very long time, even before he started to run for president.
Yeah, I worked for him. It was when I went to Washington after college, and I worked for him as his press secretary in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
And you are a speechwriter and in 2020 and a whole bunch of other things, advising, and it was beautiful to be with you on that team. I'm really proud of what we have built in terms of our friendship. So
for sure,
really excited to talk to you tonight. I mean, you're doing many things, Jacobin. I mean, you got a lot on your plate, but you had a moment where you have been working on a movie that is coming out on Netflix called Don't Look Up. And I think it's about an asteroid coming to Earth, and the political types are just treating this like it's just one other thing on their list and not taking it seriously. So there's a doctor, a professor that's trying to implore them to do the right thing, along with I think she's a research assistant or something like that, are two of the major characters. Talk to us a little bit about Don't Look Up.
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but that's right. That's in the trailer. Folks can see it. It's going to be on Netflix around the holidays, the Christmas holidays. It's basically the story of two scientists, or really one scientist and his research grad student, who were trying to warn the world that a comet is headed towards Earth, and warn the world so that we can respond. So there's a message in there about how do we process science in our politics, in our media, in our culture, and so that's really what it's about. Now, some people have seen the trailer and think it's, is this a climate movie, a metaphor for climate change? Others have said, is this a metaphor for the pandemic and how we've dealt with medical science? And in a sense, sure, it's all of those things, but it really is about how do we as a society process facts, or really can we process facts? Can we agree on basic facts, respond to basic facts, stipulate that they are facts so that we can come up with solutions and policies to get us to good outcomes? That's the big question in this movie. And I'm not going to give away what happens in the movie, but I will say it's a hilarious movie. It's a super entertaining movie, but it's also an important movie, I think, to really explore those larger topics. In a sense, it's really about kind of everything. And it's really great that Adam McKay, the director, has put together such an amazing script. He put together an amazing cast. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep. I mean, it's an incredible cast, and I'm really
Tyler
excited.
Perry, I think, is in there
Tyler
too.
Perry's in it. He's amazing in it. Kate Blanchett. I mean, it's a really great cast, and I helped construct the story with McKay, the sort of larger story. He wrote the script and directed it, and I helped co-produce it. And I'm just really excited for everyone to see it.
You should be. I mean, just that one trailer, there's something in there for everybody. Yes. However they want to frame it it fits. So I am excited. I know you definitely piqued my interest just from the trailer. So talking about Don't Look Up, you know what? I want to go back to the Daily Poster. You did this post, Bernie 2020. What motivates you to continue to stay in the independent journalism space, and why is it important to have independent media?
It's a really great question, and I think the reconciliation bill conversation that's happening right now in the country actually underscores why independent media is so important. Right now, I assume people have been following the news. There's a giant bill to deal with things like the housing crisis, the climate crisis, the healthcare crisis, the larger economic crisis, a huge bill that's being proposed. It started out as a $6 trillion proposal. It's moved down to now $3.5 trillion. This is the proposal being spearheaded by Bernie Sanders. And if you follow the media coverage of it, at most you've probably heard about some big price tag. You probably haven't heard about the specifics in the bill. And you've heard that the battle over this bill is a battle in theory between different politicians who disagree ideologically on things. But what you haven't heard is the money behind the politicians. You haven't really heard very much about the corporate lobbying against the bill. You haven't heard about which industries are funding which politicians and how that overlaps with happens to be the particular politicians who are opposing this bill. So the point is that corporate media has been telling a story about this bill that is at best superficial and in many cases misleading. It's misleading in that the biggest factor in the story, money, campaign money, dark money groups funding ads, et cetera, that's just been written out of the corporate media story about this enormously consequential piece of legislation. It has not been written out of the story in independent media. The Daily Poster has been following the money every single day on this bill to tell the story of, for instance, the members of Congress who have opposed the prescription drug provisions in this bill and how they've gotten a huge amount of pharmaceutical money. How the one House member who's leading the battle against this bill in the House is the #1 recipient of money from private equity moguls on Wall Street, and how private equity moguls don't want the tax provisions of this bill. I could go on, but you get the point that without independent media, non-corporate independent media, that story, which is really the story, does not get told. But it is being told, and we know that it's having an impact. We at the Daily Poster, the American Prospect, the Intercept did a whip count on this bill to try to hold members of Congress accountable on who's going to vote for it, who's going to vote against it, and that has had a real impact. So that is a small, not really small, it's a huge bill, but
it's important.
An immediate example of why independent media is so important and why I do the work I do.
And we need people to support independent media. Certainly we at TYT understand that. You understand that it is vitally important. And you have been working to awaken the sleeping giants, to make people aware. The Daily Poster, you really break down complicated issues so that people can really understand and also relate. And it is important for them to know whose side these politicians who've been elected supposedly to do the bidding of the people of their state, whose side they are really on. And I know that two in particular come to mind, and that's two senators, Senator Joe Manchin and also Senator Kristen Sinema, have been, the biggest. They are certainly not the only ones, but they are the biggest ones and the biggest beneficiaries of that money that you're talking about. And it's always important to follow the money. It is legal in the United States of America to buy off politicians, and we're seeing it happen in real time based on what these politicians are standing for and or standing against, David. Which leads me to my next question. Given this and the fury that is going on and just the sheer impact, the way that it always seems like big money and dark money wins, what what words of wisdom or advice do you give people in the progressive movement like us who can find it daunting at times and sometimes just want to throw up our hands and say, it doesn't matter that we do this work. We want to give up.
Well, there's two things. I mean, one, I stipulate the criticism of the two-party duopoly. It is real. It is a problem. There's corruption in both parties. But for instance, climate change is a good example. It is a ticking time bomb. And this bill that's in Congress right now shows us that there's a once in a generation potentially chance to pass a piece of legislation like this, and that our voices need to be heard and these politicians need to be held accountable, even understanding that the game is rigged, even understanding that the duopoly is corrupt. So that means that people need to be first and foremost in touch with their members of Congress. We had a member of Congress on the Daily Poster's live chat who said, listen, when I hear from my constituents in a real way, it is important. It affects me. So that's my urge to everybody. Make sure you're in touch with your member of Congress.
Absolutely, and that person was the one and only Representative Ro Khanna from the great state of California. If you are a member of the Daily Poster, you'll be able to see little treats like that. You know, Sirota, just hearing you say, just reminding people that even though it seems daunting, we got to keep pushing. There's certain issues that we cannot afford to send on the sidelines. It certainly reminds me of a quote from the great novelist, one of the great novelists of the 20th century, James Baldwin. And I think he says something like, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I want to thank you, David Sirota, for being somebody that is willing to face and stare down and fight for the change in the type of nation and world that we all deserve to live in. The award-winning journalist, the one and only David Sirota. Please check out his Don't Look Up on Netflix, coming out during Christmas time, and check him out on all the social media. David, you want to share your social media platforms?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at David Sirota. You can find the Daily Poster at dailyposter.com. And thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being who you are, not just one of my friends, but also somebody who has fought and continues to fight the good fight even when it's difficult. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.